because you get all of that oil coming ashore, and as the Gulf heats up in August and September, that's when it gets its hottest. So it takes the first few months of summer to really get it hot, and then by August and September, it's like bathtub water. Then all that methane, all that natural gas, all that oil plume that's underwater, because most of it's underwater, it's going to off-gas even worse. And some experts are talking about, 100 miles inland, there being toxic clouds, because oil doesn't precipitate and turn into water vapor, but all those other chemicals that's leaching out of it, they do.
Dispersants. However, we know that they're the same types of illnesses that people reported in Alaska. Now, the average lifespan of a person who did cleanup on the Exxon Valdez is 51 years old. Almost all those people who did work on the Exxon Valdez are now dead. And BP still here once again is big oil not giving the information to the doctors and the healthcare officials. A county nurse was not given permission to go onto the BP property when she finally did that. The people who work at BP who were coming to see her were only allowed to get Band-Aids and aspirin from her, and they were told that they only could go to the BP doctors if they wanted to get treated.
President Obama touched on the health issues in particular in the Gulf today, and I want to play this. Listen.
So far, we have seen that on shore, we are not seeing huge elevations in toxins in the air or in the water. But that may not be the case out where people are actually doing the work. And we've got to make sure that we are providing all the protections that are necessary.
Do you think the administration is doing enough?
Okay, we're going to your phone calls at 1-800-259-9231 if you've got any specific intel. But this has been going on for weeks. They are saying that the dispersant is not bad for you, though it admittedly has a skull and crossbones on the container. They have put millions and millions and millions of gallons of the dispersant into the Gulf. It is much worse. This is one of the cases where the disease is more preferable than the cure, where the cure is worse than the disease. And that's Obama, a paid corporate liar who will tell you that there's no health problems. People have died. Mainline medical doctors who've seen the workers are saying that their lungs are completely fried, that they're dead men walking. The average life expectancy from the Exxon Valdez, where they use these same dispersants, is 51 years. That's 20-plus years less than the average life expectancy. In fact, roughly 25 years less. So there you have it. And BP has its own little special doctors, and now the oil is coming in towards the shore. And you better believe that, just like with the 9/11 victims and the emergency workers, they were not given treatment. And it was covered up for close to a decade. And I've seen New York Post articles calling the police and firemen ambulance chasers, though they're dying or dead. All these universities have done CAT scans, just countless universities. Their doctors have come out, medical centers, and said, we CAT scanned their lungs. They're full of asbestos and mercury and pulverized dust and concrete and glass, and they're dying. I mean, I've been there with these military men and women, firemen and police, and they will be walking around, 35, 45-year-old men and women with tanks of oxygen, and they will, in the green room with you, when I've been at 9/11 events in New York, they will say, excuse me, and you'll go around the corner, and they're coughing blood up in a handkerchief. I've been there when they're too sick to even speak. And you know what they say about them? They're scum. They're liars. They're not sick. And so when you go down there and clean up that oil with all that dispersant, and you die like a roach that's been sprayed with Raid, they'll tell you, go crawl in a hole and die. Just like our troops that breathed all that chemical weapons residue when the U.S. blew up the weapon systems they'd sold Saddam. They were getting rid of the evidence at Camisea and other bunkers. When people came back and their brain stems shriveled up and they died, they did autopsies and would even find that they died of nerve agents. But the government said, we're not giving a red cent to your family because you aren't just cheap. You're seen as trash to them. All right, let's go to Bob in Michigan. Bob, thanks for holding. Tell us the info you've got on plans for evacuations, if any, in the Gulf.
Okay, well, it's not evacuation plans, but I work for a manufacturing company up here in Walker, Michigan, and we have a contract with BP to build oil booms. And about 5 days ago, BP basically threatened to quit participating in their side of the contract by buying our oil booms if we didn't make the product far less effective. I have my foreman on a tape recorder here saying that basically, essentially, yes, they wanted us to make sure that the booms were essentially worthless. Before, the anchor was attached to a big chain link that runs all the way through the side of the boom, and how they wanted it redesigned is where they put a little metal eyelet inside of the nylon fabric and then run a 1/4-inch cable through it. So basically, the anchor will rip right through the material. And I've got that on audio right here from my foreman. That company was in the newspaper about 3 days ago. They did a big story about how, BP is putting Americans to work, and Americans are working to, solve this right now and all this stuff. The name of the company is Prestige Parts in Walker, Michigan. I'm probably going to try and get at least 3 or 4 of the other guys at work. They're going to call you and talk to you. My girlfriend's right here. She's quality control. She knows it, but she won't get on the phone. Yeah, that's what I got.
Incredible information. Well, this fits in with Obama blocking all of the skimmer ships. This fits in with him dumping his stock the week before that he had in BP, along with the BP CEO, Goldman Sachs dumping it. Just record levels of stock being dumped. But to be specific, I'm not very familiar with these booms, but I've seen it on the news, and they've already talked about how a lot of them are ineffective. But what you're saying is that it's going to be anchored to something that when waves hit it, it's just going to basically rip the cable out of the nylon. Is that what you're saying?
My foreman did a PSI test on it because he tested the old version versus the new version of how they want it, and I've got him on tape right here, saying that it's far less effective. That basically they wanted ineffectual oil booms to continue to even keep participating in the contract for a year to buy oil booms from us.
Now here's the $64 million question: are these oil booms cheaper?
Yes. Are they, Jello? My girlfriend says yes. She's quality control and her aunt's a supervisor.
And so they are somewhat cheaper. Well, that could be the motive, but see, that's classic, where they just want people to see booms. It doesn't matter if they basically fall apart like a cheap T-shirt. Everybody's been to a party or to an event where they hand out free T-shirts, but they're so cheap, the first time you wear it, it starts tearing out at the seams because it's so thin and the stitching falls out. I've seen T-shirts that fall apart when you first put them on. So that's basically what this sounds like. But would the motive in that be it being inexpensive, or would because they're charged with cleaning it up, so you would think that they want to clean it up quick, because if they don't work, the mitigation is going to be much more expensive? Or is it because they're in bed with Obama as being the head globalist pushing the carbon tax? BP literally created it with Ken Lay of Enron. That's on record. What do you think?
I think that, it's totally a part. They want to try and get that global carbon tax in. And also, I think that, they buy oil booms a lot. And I'm sure that they test their products to see, which are the most resilient and effective for the job. So I'm pretty sure they would know, it's their job to know these things. They, walk around in Armani suits. So I would assume, they know, So it has to be in for them, what's the cost of losing all that oil out there, and I'm just saying,
Well, if the booms don't catch it, so that they can suck the oil up, so the ships can come by and suck the oil up, it's going to be much more expensive for them to clean up what ends up hitting the shore or going into the rivers and estuaries, unless that's what they want. And on every front, they will aggressively, Obama and BP, do whatever it takes to make sure it's as bad as it can be. What do your coworkers think's going on?
Well, all of them say that basically they want booms that won't even work. They think it's, at least 3 or 4 of the people I've talked to think it's a total joke, including the foreman.
And this outfit...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's just you're saying this outfit that you work for is one of the biggest suppliers of booms?
I don't know if they're one of the biggest suppliers of booms, but they have a contract with BP to make oil booms. But, and I mean, like you were saying before, though, about, like, you know, how it benefits them. I mean, it's priceless for them to be able to try and, like, reinvigorate the environmental movement with this. So, you know, I mean, and like you say, you know, there's tons of oil out there that they've got all the land they hold to. They don't build refineries, you know. So it's, you know, it's all a charade, you know.
And they know how people's brains work. They know that 3 months, 6 months, a year into this, people will say, just do anything. Okay, you want to raise my gas prices? Okay. You want to put a carbon tax on me? Just fix it. And then, then they'll find the solution to fixing the problem magically. This fits their MO to a T.